What the is high resolution audio, and what does it sound like? Can you actually tell the difference between an MP3 and a high-res WAV file? Well, stick around. I'm going to show you what the differences are, what they sound like, and how to hear them. Put on your headphones or speakers for this one. High-res audio is really determined by two things, the bit rate and the sample rate. A sample rate measures the number of samples collected from a digital source over a period of a second. You can think of this on an x-axis. The higher the number of samples or coordinates collected per second, the higher the quality and the detail of the audio. A typical audio file has a sample rate of 44,100 Hz, but a high-res typically uses 96,000 Hz. The bit rate measures the accuracy of the coordinates from the sample rate in terms of amplitude or energy. So the higher the bit rate, the more accurate a song is. It also determines how much data is collected. When you lower the bit rate, you lose out on a lot of information, especially in the dynamic range. Think about it in terms of the y-axis. An audio file typically uses a bit rate of 16 bits, and high-res uses 24 bits. Let's think of some audio in terms of a sine wave like this. A compressed file will have fewer coordinates along the wave, whereas a higher resolution file will have more coordinates, like this part of the wave. You can see that the more coordinates there are, the more accurate the audio file becomes. But can we actually hear the difference? Well, humans have a hearing range of about 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz, and most songs have that sample rate of 44,100 Hz, which more than doubles that. But we'll see what a high amount of compression does to that range in a moment. When you hear someone talk about high-res audio, they're usually talking about a WAV file of 2496. This means the song file has a sample rate of 96,000 Hz and a bit rate of 24 bits. And WAV files are types of audio files, like MP3s, but contain the original uncompressed or lossless data. But because the sample rate and bit rate are so much larger, the file size is also going to be much larger, around 138 megabytes for one 4-minute song. You can have compressed WAV files with lower bit rates and sample rates. These are typically used on CDs, whereas MP3s or lossy files are compressed versions of a song, like that sine wave we were looking at earlier. But an MP3 file might only be around 6 to 8 megabytes for one 4-minute song, which is a lot smaller. When you compress a song, you're taking the original data of the sound and squashing it. Once it's compressed, we lose some of the really high frequencies, the quality of the audio, some of the low volume sounds, and some of the similar sounds and frequencies that play at the exact same time. Think of it like a picture. When you reduce the resolution in pixels per square inch, the picture isn't as detailed and accurate. It's missing the fine details. See if you can tell the difference between these two audio samples.
Now you're too far gone
On the edge of where the sky and ocean meet, reality is forming when we plant these seeds,
Could you hear any difference? Don't worry if you couldn't. It's pretty subtle, especially when all the instruments are playing at the same time. But I'll teach you how to listen for the differences. When we compress a file, the accuracy and the fine detail of the song are missing. But what do I mean by fine detail? Take a listen to the sound of the shaker in this part. We want to be listening to the quality and the detail of the shaker. In the blue track, I can almost feel and hear every bead, but the orange, I felt muffled and not as dynamic. Let's listen again, but use an EQ graph to show what frequencies each one is producing. The top corresponds with the blue track, and the bottom with the orange, but keep your eye on the right side of the graphs, while also listening for any differences. I'm sure you already figured this out, but the blue track is the original version of the song. When a song is compressed, we lose those subtle dynamic changes, the quality of the audio, and the highs get chopped off. Here's another graph of the uncompressed song and the compressed version. Do you see any differences? What if we overlay them? Here are all the places the compressed version is changing. The frequency dynamics, meaning how high or how low the peaks go for any certain frequency, shrinks when we compress the song. And the frequency range, especially in the highs, for the compressed version is cut off around 16 to 17,000 Hz, while the uncompressed goes beyond 20,000 Hz. Let's revisit the shaker. This is part of what was missing in the compressed version. What about for low frequencies though? These can be a bit trickier to hear, but listen to how when we isolate the lows, in the compressed version, the kick and bass blend together and aren't as defined compared to the original. Let's look at the graph again. This line here is actually the compressed version. You can see how it accentuates the lows more by blending them together, so they won't deliver quite the impact they would uncompressed. When we want to listen for high resolution versions of a song, we want to listen to the quality, the impact, and the fullness of the lows, like a kick drum. And the dynamics, the accuracy, and the shine of the highs, like in a cello. You might not always be able to hear the difference in a compressed file versus the full lossless version. But another way to tell the difference is on an emotional response level. Humans are very good at telling if we like or dislike something, but we don't always know why. Sometimes we might not enjoy a song as much or experience it the same way a second time, simply because the quality of the audio has changed. So when you're listening to music, try to really feel the response you're having to it. Is it positive or is it negative? This can almost tell you more than just listening. And you don't need a crazy sound system for it. You just need to pay attention to the way the song is making you feel, because often the life of the song disappears when it's heavily compressed, like it did with those shakers. And if you want to test your listening skills even more, just click right here for an audiophile listening test. But I'll see you next time.